Good afternoon and welcome to Tree Talk episode 175 with myself, Jack Neville, and Matt Callan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. We're pre-recording today, so there won't be any live questions, but I'm sure we'll get through everything that you're wanting to know. We've hurling to look back on and hurling to look forward to. We've the footballers to look back on. The ladies footballers are back in action this week and so much more. So stay tuned for all that.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
How are you keeping, Matt? I suppose the weather is turning a small bit after I suppose 3 or 4 weekends in a row of storms. It looks like we could have a good, nice weekend.
Yeah, it's looking in that way now, Jack. But it's gone a bit milder as well. I think it was very cold early in the week, but it sits and there's a frost at night, and it usually gives us a good day. So happy days,
Yeah, very happy.
Let's hope that the results that are not coming will come, and the results that are coming will continue.
Yeah, before we get into the adult teams, I suppose we want to touch on the Ardscoil, the children's games. I suppose children were robbed of a lot of their childhood over the last 2 years with the pandemic, and obviously the return of the likes of the Mackey Cup and Sarsfield's Cup and the primary go games and all that. It just kind of more momentum towards getting back to the normality that we had.
Yeah, Jack, it's great. It's great that the games are back now. I make it my point, a point of it every year where possible, to go out to see the concluding stages of the South Limerick primary schools games, because they're always a great day, and seeing the effort that's being put in by teachers, parents, and particularly by the young people on the field. But the work that Common and Ardscoil do, and the part that they play in the promotion of our games, like it goes unsung, Jack. Joe Lyons and Kieran Crowe with their Green and White magazine, and Joe is one of the driving forces behind Common and Ardscoil. He's given his life to it, and he's national chairman at the moment, and the work they do is just simply incredible. And I suppose if you were looking for testimony of it, Jack, you need look no further than the number of players that have come through the Common and Ardscoil system that now feature on the Limerick senior teams. It's an absolutely crucial cog in the GA tree, in the GA pyramid, in that. They're inculcating a love of the games and a love of participation in the games into young people, and very, very, very much in their formative years. And they have a very, very good structure in place in Limerick, and it ensures that the conveyor belt of young talent coming through will not go unnoticed. And any publicity or any exposure that this great work is being done by Joe Lyons and all these people, it just, in my opinion, cannot get enough of exposure, because it's absolutely, Jack, it's a vital cog, an absolutely vital cog in this day and age when there is such competition for the minds of young people, especially to get them to get, in terms of the options that are out there for them. The Common and Ardscoil have certainly made the GA a very attractive sporting competition, and long made proposition, and long made continue, Jack.
Yeah, it's brilliant seeing. I suppose, as you said, they're the green and white are forever putting up pictures of our our players, our current stars in their former days in school, and it's just lovely to see in that continuation. I know a good summer's day of Munster hurling, and then the primary go games halftime. It's very enjoyable to watch, and I suppose it's just back to the fun of the game. And I was at a safeguarding course last night, and I suppose the main thing about the GA at the end of the day, especially growing up, it's about having fun. So I suppose it's important.
Yeah, like they go right across. They'll go right across the codes, which is absolutely fantastic. And I suppose the longevity of the green and white is testimony to the great work that they're doing for so long. And certainly, Limerick senior teams have benefited considerably from the groundwork that has been done by Cumann and Ardscoil.
Yeah, so the best of luck to all the kids, and I suppose their teachers and refs and everyone involved in those competitions. And like you said, you'll be out to see some of the finals. I suppose you'll get to as many games as you can, as always is the case. Talking about our current stars, we'll start with the hurlers, Matt. And I suppose another disappointing weekend. You can't really shy away from that fact. You can't hide that they were well beaten by Cork. And I suppose on that first half alone, it was kind of a complete role reversal from the All-Ireland final, where Limerick were 318 to 112 ahead. I think Croke Park, they were 213 to 5 behind. And just very uncharacteristic, I suppose, against Wexford. You had the conditions against Galway with the men sent off and still played relatively well. Against Cork, it just didn't really seem to click at all.
No, didn't click at all. And what worries me when you're comparing with last year is that it's not a comparison. It's a contrast nearly at this stage, because what we saw last year, we saw measurable improvement from game to game, and Limerick getting up ahead of full steam. We certainly saw that arrested last Saturday or Sunday, because we were lauding here last week even the measurable improvement that was evident from the Wexford game to the Galway game, even though that they suffered defeat to Galway. But what would alarm me is that level of progression, it certainly wasn't evident, particularly in the first half. If anything, it was clear regression. And your summary of it there, Jack, at the outset about it being a roles reversal of the All-Ireland final of last year is absolutely correct. It's absolutely, the bottom line here is in the first half, Limerick just weren't at the party. It's as simple as that. And there were alarming signs I thought during that first half. Now, they picked it up in the second half. And I think they're shooting in the first half. Now, at the end of the day, Cork ended up with 13 wides to Limerick's 11. But it was something like 9-2 at half time to Limerick.
Yeah.
Limerick was shooting wides when they should have been keeping Cork in check. Like Cork's wides came mainly when they were in the comfort zone, Jack, and when they were pretty sure on their way to victory. Now the second half is encouraging. But we still have a very, very long way to go. I just fear that, like, are we seeing signs of being that long on the road? 3 All-Irelands in 4 years taking its toll.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering. I would never question the appetite of this Limerick squad or the commitment of this Limerick squad, because we've seen time and time again. But they need to bounce back, Jack, and they need to get a big bounce before the championship, because Cork will be cock of the hoop now, and Cork to beat Galway on Saturday evening, which I think they may. They're looking at a league semi-final, which will close the gap to the championship, and potentially looking at a league final.
Yeah.
And, another thing, were this Cork team to go and win 24 years without a National League title, it would be a huge boost to this young team, you know.
Yeah, I want to touch on Cork there for a minute. I suppose being accused of green mist in recent times, but aside from Limerick's poorness in the day, Cork seem to have improved. It looks like they have a plan in place for Limerick. They definitely have a clear game plan when it comes to playing, that they're working it through the lines until they can get it over the Limerick half-back line. Like, how many balls went over Declan Hannon, Kyle Hayes and Colin Coughlin's head the last day. They obviously have Pat Horgan and Shane Kingston inside, and Shane Barrett was coming in and out. That, like, they seem to have really bounced back from the devastation of the All-Ireland final loss, and losing any All-Ireland final is obviously very disheartening. But we saw at Waterford in 2008 that it took them a long time to get back there. That Cork seem to just have learned from it and look to be the main contenders to Limerick alongside Galway at this early stage.
Yeah, they're definitely contenders. There's no question about it. The only thing that you would be hoping for, have they shown John Kiley and Paul can have too much of that hand?
Yeah, I was thinking that, but then again, they have a couple of players to come back into that side. I suppose Rob Downey wasn't playing, was one that you'd imagine will be thereabouts. They've a few more from the under-20s team. The likes of Kieran Joyce now is still young. Will he start come championship? That it wasn't probably their best 15, and they still were comfortably ahead of Limerick. And I suppose at the end of the day, they seem to have a game plan, because they completely nullified Keane Lynch, who destroyed them in Croke Park. Now, Keane, I suppose, has been on the back of a grueling Fitzgibbon Cup campaign, and I suppose when Limerick are playing poorly, it's hard for certain players to get into the game. But from a Cork point of view, it's definitely a good early signs. But you mentioned that point there about the league final, and obviously Cork are craving that success. If you get to that league final, you are closing the gap to Munster Championship. From a Limerick point of view, would you be happy to see Cork go all the way and then have less time to prepare for that first round clash? Or
yeah, possibly. There is that side to it as well, Jack. You could look at it that way, and we have seen over the years, like, history is dotted with teams winning the league and suddenly coming a cropper in the championship. But they were in the days of the straight knockout championship. Invariably, league finalists, you'd win the league maybe in April, you'd be out in the championship in late May, early June, and suddenly the league champions would be knocked out or would be beaten. And I think the whole thing is structured different now, Jack, because you're going straight from you must remember, as we speak here, Jack, the championship is only about 5 weeks away.
Yeah.
You know? And
17th of April, for anyone wondering.
Cork will fit an awful lot of have potential to fit an awful lot of good games into that.
Yeah,
they're going to have a game now against Galway at the weekend. Like, it's a perfect scenario for Cork. Like, here they are in pole position to go into the league semi-final, Jack. That the group has been reduced to a three-way battle for the two places. And they have to play the two teams that they're in the battle with. Now, of course, it could all go wrong.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Galway, they have to go to Wexford, and were they to lose to Wexford, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that's a very unlikely scenario. But Cork have the potential. They have the potential of 4 good competitive games between now and when they face Limerick again. They've definitely Galway. They've definitely Wexford away. Then they will possibly have a league semi-final and possibly a league final.
Yeah.
Which is, and then you're straight into the championship and the momentum is with you. Now, all right, there may be those games are going to be condensed into a very short spell. And we have seen what the fallout from that has been in the Munster Championship round robin and the ramifications it has for teams.
Yeah, Cork they do seem to have a good squad, so that should negate some of that. But when we were talking during the week, I was kind of making the point that it looks very similarly for Cork. It looks poor for Limerick at the moment. If it conspires that Limerick beat Clare and beat Offaly and that Cork lose their last 2 games, it's a completely different narrative than when you go into Munster Championship. That, like, I know we're making it out now that Cork are world beaters and everything, and that Limerick have fallen off completely. But these things change very quickly with the nature of the
Very,
condensed
very
season.
quickly, Jack. And that's why I say if they lose to Galway and didn't lose to Wexford, you know, the landscape, the hurling landscape can change very, very, very quickly.
Very quickly.
You know, and we know when you're at the top, you're there to be knocked off. And like Cork are in the driving seat at the moment, and like you must remember Henry Shefflin and Galway are coming to the side at the weekend. It's their last chance. You know, lose, they're gone.
Yeah, I suppose before we get back onto Limerick, Wexford have Offaly, and no disrespect to Offaly, you'd imagine Wexford will win that game, that they'll go to 4 from 4 before that game to Cork. If you had to call the top two in Limerick side of the league for the league semi-finals, which way would you like swaying towards?
I'm going Cork and Wexford.
Cork and Wexford. So Cork to beat Galway.
I think Cork will beat Galway. Now Galway came to Cork last year and won. You must remember, like Cork are in a similar situation to they were this time 12 months, but they're 1 point better off. Last year, they went into the final 2 games of the group with 5 points. They lost heavily to Limerick and then lost to Galway and were out. Now, they will obviously be very, very keen, plus the fact that there was only one qualifying for a league final last year.
Yeah.
Or a sharing of the league. But this year, there are 2. And I think Cork know what's in front of them. The map is planned very carefully. The hurling map is planned. Win your game against Galway, and you're guaranteed 2 more games at least.
Yeah, I suppose there's a huge caveat there.
I agree with you that Wexford are likely to beat Offaly, especially since it is in Wexford Park.
Yeah.
Now, like the cards have fallen very, very well and very, very nicely. Thank you for Wexford, mind you. They have their last 2 games at home.
Yeah, but I suppose they went on the road.
Oh, you know where I'm coming from on that. You know, but look, they've done the spade work. They've done the spade work. They've gone to Clare, they've gone to Galway, and they've won. You know, and fair play to them. And it's like I possibly see a scenario where Cork and Wexford will be a dead rubber to the point that all that will be at stake will be first and second place in the group.
Yeah, I suppose if they both win at the weekend, that'll be the case. And you wouldn't have thought it when you looked at the league, when the draw was made, you wouldn't be thinking that Limerick and Clare and Galway would all be out of contention. But that's the scenario we could have. On Limerick, Matt, I suppose there's a couple of things that kind of stood out for me. Again, that number 15 jersey, no one is really putting their hand up. I thought Gerard Hegarty was really badly missed on Sunday, just to kind of break tackles. Himself and William O'Donoghue in that regard, and I heard it during the week, I think it was on Off the Ball, I think it was Paul Murphy was saying that they kind of give you go-ahead ball, because if Gerard or William get the ball, they're taking their man on, you're breaking a tackle, you're making a 2-on-1 straight away. Can you account for the loss of Gerard Hegarty? Could you put a lot of what happened in the first half down to the fact that the St. Pat's man wasn't there?
I would, yeah. Certainly, you see, you had a regular missing out of every line, if you like, Jack. If you talk about the All Ireland team, like we'll say, Nicky was missing in goal, and this is no disrespect to the players that were in, but that's the way John Kiley went to shuffle the pack. Barry Nash was missing in the full back line. You had Dermot Burns missing in the half back line. You know, William O'Donoghue was missing, Gerard Hegarty was missing, and Peter Casey and Graham Mulcahy were missing. So, like you had every line affected, and it was bound to a certain degree to affect the coordination of the team. Now I see Niall Moran making a point in the media during the week that he felt that Limerick didn't have sufficient or adequate backup. In that there probably isn't enough pressure on the first 15, and he probably maybe have a point.
Yeah, on that, like
There's a certain element of of putting his finger on it there.
if you look at the 2018 All Ireland winning team, all that's changed is Barry Nash in for Rich English. Now there's a good few positional changes, but Barry Nash is in, William O'Donoghue was in, and Peter Casey was in. Like 3 changes in 4 years is nothing major. He was kind of fighting to the Dublin teams that had maybe 2 or 3 new faces every year. And like Limerick have such a special group of players, it is hard to, I suppose, switch them out as easily as you can. But I think it's not that the players coming up aren't good enough. I think they're just not very like for like, if you get me. Like Aaron Costello for Barry Nash. Aaron Costello is far more of a kind of a defensive minded cornerback than Barry Nash, who was just converted back there. Colin Coughlin and Darren Burns are different players. They just offer different things. I just don't think it's like for like, and Limerick are so used to a certain system. I think that's maybe where they could have fallen down. I think on the positive side, Kyle O'Neill has really put his hand up. It's probably a bit unfortunate that he's not a corner forward and that didn't work last year, but maybe he'll get that chance again. I don't think it's the players aren't good enough. I think they're just not like for like. What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, because I certainly think that if you look at the Limerick bench, Jack, and we've spoken about the bench and we've spoken about the impact of the bench. We just haven't spoken about it, Jack. We've seen it. We've seen what it's capable of. From when they come off the bench. Yeah, I agree with you. It is just bedding and getting people bedding into the system, and of course you'll only rectify that with games. Yeah. But you see, if you're talking about this year and rectifying it for this year, you're running out of games, Jack. You've only 2 competitive games left before you go to Cork.
Yeah, you are definitely.
There's also the narrative in this, Jack, that John Kiley, we have seen over the last 4 years, has put an awful lot of emphasis, year in, year out, in having his team exactly right, exactly spot on for the first round of the championship.
Yeah.
He has spoken ad nauseum about it, and he has never failed to deliver. So I'm clinging to that hope, plus the fact that have Cork shown too much of their hand too soon?
Potentially. If you were, I know it's really early doors, if you were to call it like the championship team to play Cork, what changes will there be from the team that played the All-Ireland final? So obviously Peter Casey is out, but do you see any other changes?
No.
And who would you have in?
Graham Mulcahy.
Yeah, see, I would think Graham is probably more of an impact player. And again, talking about the 2018 team, you had Peter Casey and Shane Dowling and Pat Ryan coming on, or Dave Reedy as well, coming on scoring every game. Do you see there's any possibility of like a complete reshuffle like we saw in 2020 where Hayes went back wing back and Keane Lynch went centre forward? And I think there's a strong possibility that with Rich English's form that he has to go in. Could Nash move forward? Could we see Hayes back in the forwards again?
Possibly, that's a possibility. It's a possibility. But I don't think you're going to see it until we face Cork.
Yeah, I don't either. I just think that there's obviously one position up for grabs with Peter Casey. And the one person I think that has really put their hand up has been Rich English. Now, he's at the other end of the field, but John Kiley isn't afraid to change it up. I think that's something we could see. I think if Cork have not copped onto Keane Lynch, because you'll never cop onto what he does, but if Cork have a system around Keane Lynch at centre forward, if you move him into the corner, is our system malfunctioning then? Does it work differently? Because if he'll just change the whole dynamic. I think as well that Cathal O'Neill could be corner forward. I know it doesn't suit him, but he could come out and drop out like Peter Casey did and shoot from all over the field. I'm just saying I don't think we're going to see. I think we're going to see something different, and I also think that people are writing out Limerick. John Kiley will be very happy with that. Because
Absolutely. You know, the whole thing surrounding Limerick at the moment, he'd be fierce happy with it, because, like, we were listening to the winter of nothing but how invincible Limerick were and all this sort of stuff, like, which, you know, like, he will be delighted that that's nearly off the agenda now, and that people will be all switching to Cork.
yeah,
And you know, with that kind of narrative going around, it's bound to bring pressure on management. It's bound to bring pressure on players. It's bound to bring pressure on everybody. And he'd be absolutely delighted, like that. And of course, as I said to you, Jack, the aftermath of the Munster Senior Hurling Cup, and it was, you know, no disrespect to the Munster Senior Hurling Cup, very, very important competition for giving players game time. Like, the expectation in Limerick went sky high.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, we were nearly believing that we could put two teams in the championship and they'd meet in the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I suppose the
We were
greatest
almost
really
at that
shown there.
point, Jack.
Yeah, but I suppose it's no harm to just come back to reality and realise that there's very good teams there. Ireland or Limerick are still the All-Ireland favourites, and I wouldn't be backing against them. But it's interesting. And these things, as we said, can change from week to week. At the moment, something isn't right. We saw against Cork last year, all it takes is one good game from this group of players. They have the experience behind them. They just need to kind of let it click. If they do that against Clare,
They will, Jack. I believe they will now. Whether it will be on Sunday in Ennis, I'm not so sure. Clare will be looking to get a bit of a fill-up. They will be looking to get a boost ahead of Limerick visiting there in the championship. I would read absolutely nothing into the Munster League final victory over Clare, because for a start, you've John Conlon, you've Tony Kelly, and you've Peter Duggan now back on board. So now I understand that possibly Mark Rogers will be missing through injury, but it'll be a different Clare. It'll be a different Clare team, and Brian Lohan will see this. Will want to build on the win over Offaly last week, and will want to finish the league strongly. Now, Clare mathematically have an outside chance, I think, of possibly making it. But to take a freak series of results, Cork would need to be beaten in the two games, and Clare would need to beat Galway in the last game, and then it will all come down to scoring difference for the second place with Wexford.
looking at the tables now, Cork and Wexford 3 from 3, 6 points. Galway 2 from 3, 4 points. Clare have 2 points, as you said. They play Galway and Limerick. They can get 6 points, but if Clare gets 6 points, I think it's a case of Cork, Wexford, Galway, and Clare all be the same amount of points. So that's above our pay grade.
No, it's not. Were they to get to 6 points, Wexford would have to be on 8 or 10.
Oh, yeah, Wexford have to beat Cork. Yeah, it would come down to themselves.
Beat Cork. But to be a three-way then for on scoring difference between Cork, Galway and Clare, and certainly Cork would have the advantage there. But mathematically, it's a remote possibility Clare could still make the league.
Yeah, on the other side of the draw, Matt, you have Waterford and Dublin on 5 points, Tipperary on 4, Kilkenny on 4, and Antrim and Laois have yet to pick up a point. If we said that you think that Cork and Wexford will come out of Group A, coming out of Group B, who do you fancy?
I think it'll be Kilkenny and Waterford.
Yeah, I think Waterford have probably been the most impressive team in that group, alongside Dublin. Now, Dublin have Kilkenny this Saturday.
They have, and like our that prediction could quite very easily go out the window over Dublin to win it.
Yeah, you'd imagine.
And I think Kilkenny have Dublin and Waterford. Is that right in the concluding stages?
Yeah. You know that if Kilkenny pick up 2 wins there, they're through essentially. Yeah. If my maths haven't failed me there, but I'd say the winner between Dublin and Kilkenny will go through. And it could be the case of the winner between Waterford and Tipperary on Sunday will go through as well. So that's as open as Group 1. But look, it remains to be seen. Limerick won't be in the league semi-final or final. I don't think it's going to bother them too much. Realistically, the only thing that the league is used for them will be getting players right. And you can't accuse John
last year, but it didn't inhibit him last year.
Yeah, you can't accuse John Kiley of not experimenting anyway. He's tried out a load of lads. probably hasn't gone to plan in certain cases, but all they need, as I said, is that the game to go right in Ennis. You didn't seem too, I suppose, kind of confident in Ennis this Sunday. How do you see the game going?
I'm not that confident, Jack. You know, Clare always seem to get themselves up for Limerick. You know, I'm not that confident, to be honest.
Yeah, I would be now. I was blindly confident going into Wexford, Galway, and Cork so far. So,
well, I have not been wrong. I have been wrong for the last three Limerick matches, Jack. And by not being confident, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, so do I. Look at
that convoluted answer to convey anything to you.
Yeah, I suppose Clare and Ennis is like Limerick will always get Clare up for the game, but vice versa. If Limerick see that yellow jersey, it should be a cracking game anyway this Sunday at 1:45 in Cusack Park. So the half an hour in the hurling, we'll move on to the football mat, and I suppose while it hasn't gone right for the hurlers, it's most certainly going right for Billy Lee and the footballers. We spoke about the defeat to Louth. It was very disappointing just how it happened, conceding 7 in a row, but you wouldn't want any other team going up to Aughrim needing to win. That's 2 years in a row, going up to one of the most notoriously difficult venues in Ireland. 113 to 19. I suppose they never make things easy, the Limerick footballers, but they were so often on the wrong side of results after playing well. They're on the right side of these results these days. 3 from 4 in the league and top of the table. And as Pa would say, why not dare to dream?
Yeah, why not dare to dream is right. And we spoke in the context of this league, Jack, about Limerick. This Limerick team's ability to when their backs are really to the wall, to deliver. And this is the third major result in as many years that this Limerick team have delivered. And at the risk of being repetitive, I talk about Sligo in 2020, which saw Limerick promoted as Division 4 champions when the odds were stacked against them. It was make or break 12 months ago when they travelled to Aughrim. It was either a promotion semi-final or a relegation semi-final. They delivered. The good start to the current league, which seemed to have come off the rails when they lost to Louth. They needed immediate response. Their backs were to the wall, going to a Wicklow side who are also fighting for survival. And Limerick did it. And in the circumstances in which they did it, Jack, were absolutely fantastic. They won the game by 4 points. I think they were 2 points up with 10 minutes to go, at one stage when they were down to 13 players with 2 black cards. They subsequently suffered a red card on the home straight, but Wicklow suffered a black card around the same time or a bit later. But they saw out the game, Jack, and it is a characteristic of this Limerick team in the league in 3 out of 4 games that they won. It's their ability to see out the game in the closing stages. For some reason, probably they were in the best position to see out a game of the 4 was against Louth.
Yeah.
And you just couldn't legislate for a team just kicking 7 points without reply. You know, the only time I saw that happening was Gerald Griffin's to Rathkeale in quarter final in 2019. And look, I was very pleased to see during the week where certain elements were beginning to laud the job that Billy Lee has done. I think that needs to be said. He has done an absolutely, we've said it here, but he's done an absolutely fantastic job. And it was great, absolutely thrilled to see that Colm Cooper acknowledged it on the Sunday game last Sunday evening, the job he has done, because he's done a phenomenal job, absolutely phenomenal job. And now the situation is, whilst we were a bit down last week, Jack, and we were wondering, lose to Wicklow and you're back into the mire, you're back into the mix, you're looking downwards, looking over your shoulders. You're looking very much upwards now, Jack.
Yeah, very much
Looking
upwards.
very much upwards. And at the start of this league, there was a it was mentioned out there that, oh, look, you go through the motions and Laois and Westmeath are going to be promoted anyway. We saw what happened to them last Sunday. Like,
yeah, it's very open.
Laois were lucky to draw at home at Antrim and Louth beat Westmeath. So, as far as promotion is concerned, game on, Jack. Westmeath are due here in a week's time. Be a very, very interesting game. Now, we have a poor record against Westmeath, but, those poor records are there to be ended.
Yeah, and Billy Lee, as manager, has seen a lot of those poor records, and obviously the win over Tipperary in 19 stands out. This is a hypothetical question, Matt, but you'd imagine that if Limerick were faced with the situation they had against Longford, Antrim, and Wicklow maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that they probably wouldn't have come away with the win. It'd be fair to say that Billy Lee has instilled this mentality in them that they're going to win, whichever way it's going to come, that they just have a huge mental resolve.
Huge, absolutely huge mental resolve. But Jack, I have noticed with the last couple of years with this particular squad and the whole aura surrounding this Limerick squad is that there is a camaraderie there, a great camaraderie within that squad. And that is down to the manager and his backroom team. And Billy has built that. And there is fantastic passion and spirit within the squad. And the sky is the limit, if you like, as to what they can achieve, because I think people are beginning to sit up and take notice. Here we are 4 rounds into Division 3 of the Alliance Football League, and one of the senior pundits, let's say, most of the senior pundits would have Limerick's name penciled in and inked in to be relegated back down to Division 4, and they're looking closer now to Division 2 than Division 4.
Yeah,
and it's a fantastic place to be in. The possibility, there's still a possibility of relegation, Jack. Dare I mention it, because Limerick will know from experience that they were relegated with 6 points. I think it was in 2015. They were which was a freak result, to win 3 games and not to stay up. But I was looking at the league and I was trying to anticipate what might happen and what might not happen. And you could say for certain anyway that Wicklow will not catch Limerick because they're on 7 points, or they're on a maximum of 7 points. Longford will find it very, very hard to catch Limerick. They're on a maximum of 9 points. And Wexford and Longford have to meet.
Yeah.
So there's there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge, but I don't think that Billy Lee will be thinking about we're avoiding relegation. That narrative has changed, Jack.
Definitely changed.
Avoiding relegation and consolidation. They no longer feature in the lexicon of the current league campaign. The current league campaign, as it sits and as we speak now, Jack, is all about Limerick upwards and looking towards a promotion spot.
Yeah, and
looking towards a Division 3 final.
Yeah, you can look at Derry, and I suppose Derry probably have a richer history of football than Limerick, to be fair. But Derry were in Division 4 2 years ago, and they're well on course to get to Division 1. Now, I know they did come from Division 1 only at the start of 2010's kind of era, like that they were in a league final against Dublin, that just something happened in Derry. But it can be done. You can rise up through the grades. Like Antrim or another team that won Division 4 last year, they'll be thereabouts with Limerick. We'll talk more in depth about the Westmeath game next week. But one thing that strikes me from this current team is the spread of scorers, because obviously losing Danny Neville is a huge blow. But outside of that, James Carroll hasn't been a regular starter for a number of years, but was one of Limerick's main scoring threats. We've lost Jamie Lee midway through 2020. We lost Sean McSweeney from St. Kieran's that same year. We lost Sean McSweeney from Fines, and we only had him for a year, but was a real scoring threat that it's not even one player is stepping up to the mark. Against Wicklow, you'd all 6 forwards scoring from play. Josh Ryan got his goal with 4 frees. Hugh Burke got 4 from play, which was a magnificent performance by all accounts. Peter Nash, Adrian Enright, James Lockton, and Brian Donovan all got on the score sheet. And on top of that, like the likes of Ian Corbett usually chips in with a couple, Robbie Childs on his wing back, or Tony Carter, or Gordon Brown, whoever is there, always chipping in with scores. Limerick are scoring from all over the place, and it's very hard to mark that if you've 8 or 9 lads that can score on any given day, especially in football.
It is, and at the very outset, the first conversation we had about the league, and when we were speculating on what sort of a line-out that Billy Lee would have, I spoke about the importance of that I felt of Josh Ryan, and getting Josh Ryan because. I feel Josh Ryan has an awful lot to offer, and certainly I think in the current campaign he's absolutely delivering. He's having his best campaign, and he's a key part of Billy's strategy. A big man like him with so much talent, you just have got to accommodate him and find a way of getting the best out of him. And I think Billy's getting the best out of him at last, and that's a huge plus for Limerick. And it certainly offsets the loss of some of the players. But there's very few counties, particularly at Limerick's level, that could afford, Jack, to lose the players that you have spoken about. And it was a constant trickle away. And it seemed to take new legs last year when they lost Brian Fanning, Tom Childs, and Danny Neville, frontline players and very, very good squad players, and Seamus O'Carroll, David Connolly, and Padraig Scanlon.
Yeah,
but Billy weathered it, and we were talking about those 6, and like you went to Antrim, you added 4 onto it in Antrim. Because you had Mike Donovan, you had Padraig De Bruin and Rob Childs and Killian Fahy all injured and weren't available. Yeah. So,
next man up.
There is strength and depth in it, and like you would hope that the 3 that are not available this year may become available sometime in the future or the near future.
Yeah, please God. It's like. It seems worlds away that when that summer that Billy made was at 50 phone calls, and all knows that's just a very attractive place to be now is in with the Limerick footballers. And all credit to Billy. And I suppose anyone that wants to know what kind of man Billy is, just watch his interview after Wicklow. Just pure passion, pride in his players, happiness. It's just a very honest interview, and you don't get them anymore, really. I suppose players and management are well trained in the art of media, and that's fair enough as well. But it's just very honest assessment of where his team are at and the hard work they've put in, and he's pride in it. It's just brilliant to watch. It's on our YouTube page if anyone wants to watch it. His interview with Pa and John Reddington after the Wicklow game. So I would definitely check that out. But as I said, we'll be looking more into Westmeath next week. Obviously in the down week this week. But I suppose the long and the short of it is that we're looking upwards now. You're not looking back anymore. You're looking upwards, and Division 2 isn't out of reach by any means. I think is the key summary after round 4.
That is the key summary, Jack. That is it. You're looking upwards, and don't be afraid to mix with the big boys.
No, we've seen like Clare did Trojan work at underage level. They've gone up into Division 2 with their contenders. Derry, we mentioned Antrim, Armagh were in the mire for a good few years. They're near the top of Division 1 now. So it can be done. Look, Billy Lee's project, this isn't for anyone coming in. It's not an overnight thing. Billy is there since late 2016. And we had a couple of bad years, but no fault to Billy, obviously. But it's coming good, and it's brilliant to see. Continuing that team for football, the under-20s are in action in the final round.
Just before you go there, you spoke about Derry going all the way from Division 4 to Division 1. Just a useless bit of information, but an important information nevertheless. If we change codes and if we change to the English League, Northampton Town once went on in successive years from Division 4 to Division 1, the old Division 1, and continued the sequence in successive years, went back down to Division 4.
Well, I don't know. Is that a bad omen for Limerick or a good one that it can be done? Yeah, I think.
I wasn't talking in the context of Limerick, Jack. I was talking in the context of Derry.
Yeah, I thought I heard a Limerick footballer maybe 10 years ago saying that he's one of the only players that went from Division 4 to 1 back down to 4. Now, I don't know how true that is, but look, these things like the hurling, it is very finicky. But like as we said at the start of the year, maybe 4 weeks ago, it would have been consolidating Division 3 status. Now it's can we get to Division 2? So these things change. But another win against Westmeath, and you're certainly thereabouts, beating another contender. But yeah, as I said, we'll look at next week. 20s are playing on Saturday afternoon in UL at 2:30 against Offaly. Offaly are obviously the reigning All-Ireland champions, so it's not an easy game for Shamey and decide, but that team is named if you want to check it out on Twitter or whatever. Just the best look to Shamey and his side. They'll have the bones of a month to prepare for the Munster Championship when they play Waterford, and that's a knockout game, so the best look to that team. Moving on to ladies football, Matt, and you had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we're set for a dead rubber. That's pretty much the case against Carlow this Sunday in Carlow, 2:00. You don't ever want to be playing a dead rubber, but for Limerick, at least it's in their favour, I suppose, that the job is done already, and just another chance for Graham Shiney's team maybe to use a few French players and give them a run out.
Yeah, I suppose he'll have a bit of a dilemma there in does he stick with a settled team going into what will be a tough semi-final, or does he try out and see what the French players are up to? I think he'll probably go for a bit of both. Like you cannot get a deader rubber than this. It's the absolute dead rubber because there's absolutely nothing at stake. Limerick cannot be knocked off first place, no matter what happens, because Offaly and London are meeting, and whichever one of them wins, Limerick will have the head-to-head on them. And Carlow cannot just get off the bottom for the very same reason that they've lost to both London and Offaly, who meet, and whoever loses, they cannot will have the head-to-head on them. So it's an absolute dead rubber, and it's a free pass of a day, but it's an opportunity to try out some players, and I think Graham Shine will probably do a certain element of experimenting, because like it's his first year in charge. He's only been in since December, and he has been in the 2 games to date. He has stuck with the same starting 15, and like he has a panel of 40, as he told us after the last game. And as we know, he named a panel of 40 from the beginning. And I think he will be very, very keen to see more players in a game situation and what they can do. In many ways, for that type of approach, it's an ideal game. But he still will have to have one eye in a semi-final, which I think is probably coming up the week after. Jack, is it?
I'm not sure. I can just check for you there now.
It's coming up pretty quickly anyway, and it's going to be against Fermanagh or Leitrim, I would imagine, though Antrim are in the mix as well. But it's Limerick are going to be playing the team that finishes second.
Yeah.
In the other group. So it looks. From this remove, it looks like Fermanagh, because Leitrim have won their 2 games comfortably.
Yeah, as you said, Leitrim are top with 2 wins from 2. Fermanagh have won 1 and lost 1. I can't find the league semi-finals, but I know with the condensed nature of everything in the GA now, it's probably come around the corner. But I suppose they had a week off last week. It was me. I probably played the French players to see what they're like in a game, because everyone will tell you can play as many training games as you want. It's the cut and trust, the championship, that really tells where you are. But look, the best luck to Graham Shine and his side. The job is done already, but it's nice to get 3 wins from 3, continue that momentum. If you can do that with some of your French players, all the better. It shows that they're up to that level. But a league semi-final awaits them. Another semi-final that we have is the Crow Cup semi-final. Ardscoil Rís versus Good Counsel of New Ross in Wexford this Saturday at 3 o'clock in Bansha. Ardscoil only came through their quarter-final on Monday to beat Presentation College at Rye in Dangan on Monday evening. I suppose for Ardscoil Rís, they've been so used to coming in as Munster champions 5 times in the last 10 years or so that they obviously lost the Heart Cup final. Their quarter-final was postponed, was called off, I suppose, with 10 minutes to play because of an injury, and it seems to be good signs for that young lad from Presentation College, so we send our best wishes to them. But could it nearly suit the North Circular Road school to come through the back door, kind of come as outsiders, playing against the Leinster champions now that they might be written off in some quarters, whereas they would have been huge favourites and huge pressure for them to go on and win it with the riches they have?
Yeah, I think it possibly suits them, and to get the quarter-final game with Athenry, I think will probably suit him as well. Though, not in the best of circumstances, and that the game had to be originally abandoned and refixed. But certainly, a game is a game, and certainly, obviously, Good Counsel from Wexford will be very, very strong, and they have quite an amount of players from Kilkenny in their team. Look, they're in the mix. They're in the mix, and certainly and under the radar, because Harty Cup champions always tend to be on the radar along with St. Kieran's Kilkenny. Now, St. Kieran's Kilkenny are still there, and they're playing St. Joseph's Tulla in the other semi-final. But I think it'll suit Ardscoil Rís to coming in the way they are, and having got a game as late as last Monday, I think it'll suit them as well. And I think they're in with a right shout.
Yeah, I would also fancy Ardscoil Rís. I suppose you mentioned that other semi-final, but you probably would have got no odds for St. Kieran's reaching the semi-final, just that they're always there. But similarly, you probably wouldn't have got odds for Tulla either getting all the way. I don't think they'd won a Heart Cup game until this year. It's a real kind of David versus Goliath game.
Oh, it's a classical David and Goliath, and as the Harty Cup progressed, and as they were making progress in it, they were probably saying, we're into bonus territory if we get to semi-final, and we're really into bonus territory if we get to a final. But now that they have won the final, the bonus territory is over. It's into the serious business. There's an All-Ireland semi-final now, and you're up against the kingpins of it. So it's not going to be easy for Tulla, Jack. It'll be a real test of Tulla, and if Tulla can get over St. Kieran's, although St. Kieran's did not feature in the Leinster final, they had to play off for a place because the Dublin schools were ineligible.
Yeah,
who reached the final. It'll be a serious test. I have no doubt that St. Kieran's will provide Tulla with a very, very serious test, and if they get over it, you could conceivably have a repeat of the Harty Cup final.
Yeah, that's where I was going for. Those games.
And if that be the case, Ardscoil Rís would not be wanting for motivation or for.
Yeah, I suppose in these schools competition, you could get one good crop of students, and you kind of have to make hay while the sun shines. So the best luck to the 4 teams. We were talking about the Bunscola, the coming Bunscola at the very start. That'll be kind of one of our concluding points, that the schools competition. St. Joseph's playing St. Kieran's at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and Ardscoil Rís against Good Counsel of New Ross at 3 o'clock. They're both on TGCar's YouTube page. I don't think it's on live television. I think it's their YouTube page, but I no better place to watch a game. I suppose before we finish, Matt, I don't.
No, we just acknowledge, Jack, that on Wednesday, Salesian College Pallaskenry won the Munster College's D hurling final when they beat Skull Murradland Small from Blarney 4-11 to 1-11 in the final. We'd like to congratulate Pallaskenry, Salesian College, Pallaskenry, Colin Ryan, the former Clare hurler, is in charge down there, and Brian Chambers of their senior hurling team, and it makes up in some small way for they were Salesian College, Pallaskenry were within touching distance, Jack, of a double. Yeah. Like they were beaten in the D football final by Beara Community College after a hectic game. An absolutely fantastic game of football down in Mount Collins on the lights there about 2 weeks ago. And this is no little consolation for them. It is great. It's great for the college and great for the school that they get to both finals, and certainly it would have been ideal they'd have pulled them off, but certainly they pulled off the hurling one, and it's absolutely fantastic. When we departed there from ladies sport, Jack, we omitted to mention that the Camogie team were beaten by Cork, suffered a very, very heavy defeat to Cork in the second round of the Littlewoods Camogie League down in Cork last Saturday. And first of all, and we're talking about this motion that was at Congress and got overwhelming support for the amalgamation of the codes. And we saw it firsthand, Jack, how it could work, because the Camogie match was the curtain raiser to the Galway Cork senior football. And certainly the sky didn't fall down, Jack. No. It worked very well. The only thing that didn't work was on the day for Limerick. Now, John Ellis was forced to make a whole raft of changes for various reasons. He was minus 8 frontline players from the team that performed so admirably against Kilkenny. Yeah. And it included lead players like Caoimhe Costello and Rebecca DeLee, your really go-to players. Now, he was forced to introduce a raft of new players from the start and from the bench. And I'm just wondering, talking to myself, and I'm not quite clear on the rules, but I have got to check it out. Are these people, are all those players tied to senior now for the league, with the junior league about to start?
Yeah, they'd be tied for the league, I'd imagine now. I'd imagine they'd be going for the grey area.
He certainly had to delve deep into his resources. And, of course, Cork were flying. Cork are into league semi-final now. They play Kilkenny next weekend, and what is it? A dead rubber as well. It's only a shootout for first and second. And it leaves Limerick having to play Clare next weekend at a venue and on a day to be fixed. It could be a very nice curtain raiser to Limerick and Offaly.
Yeah, it could be. Very well could be. It should be, really.
So if the powers to be would accommodate that, it worked in Cork, so why not work in Limerick?
Yeah,
why not work anywhere, Jack? But it's a must-win game for Limerick, or then they lose it and they're into a relegation scrap.
Yeah.
Now they did get the better of Clare twice last year. I think you were there with me, actually. Were you, Jack, in Ennis the day that they won?
Yeah.
In Father McNamara Park.
Yes.
And that was in the league, and they subsequently won in Clarina in the Munster Championship. So it's an important week for Limerick Camogie and for John Dillis and his charges, and we just hope that as many as possible of those 8 players that were absent for a variety of reasons, that they will be back on board for the Clare game, because it will be all shoulders to the wheel. Now, Clare pushed Cork very, very much in the first round, and they pushed Kilkenny to a point in Cusack Park last Sunday.
Yeah. Look, they have good history against Clare, I suppose, is a good takeaway from it. We're talking about the Hurlers. They lost all their league games so far, and we're still not ruling them out for a championship. So hopefully the Camogie side will be the same, and just a win against Clare could kickstart their season, please God. I suppose before we finish, Matt, this is all about sports, and just it's very easy going, and we wouldn't get into the politics. But the situation in Ukraine, I suppose you couldn't ignore it really. It's fairly unprecedented, and we're getting too used to that word. But I suppose just sending our support and best wishes to the people in Ukraine. Just it's hard to imagine things like that in 2022.
It is, Jack. It just it puts everything into context. The world for the last 2 years was hit by the COVID pandemic, and no sooner had the COVID pandemic began to wane. I suppose it's not gone away. When we had this lunacy took a foothold. Yeah, our total solidarity with the people of Ukraine and the sovereign nation that it is, and our full support with the people of Ukraine. When they're facing, I suppose, the biggest bully of the 21st century to date. We have seen bullies over the years, and we've seen dictators over the years, and most of those dictators, end up with the same fate. And maybe Mr. Putin will end up with the same fate.
Yeah, as I said, we won't get into.
There will be a lot of destruction, a lot of harm, a lot of life lost before it happens. That's the unfortunate thing about this, Jack. And one life is one too many. And there are various agencies, various organizations, various voluntary groups here in this country organizing support and aid for them. We would urge people to be very, very conscious of that and to support it in any way possible.
Yeah, I know there's collection points and things going around. So as you said, if you can support it all possible, look, we focus solely on sports, but it would be remiss not to mention what's going on out there, and just to lend support in any way we can, and promote, I suppose, peace is the main thing you want to, and it's obviously affecting the sporting landscape. Obviously not so much for the GA, but you're seeing UEFA pulling teams in the Formula 1, etc. So I suppose the sporting world is kind of uniting and fronting up to this issue. So please God, that'll be the last time we have to mention this, that some sort of resolution can be found. But I suppose at the end of this podcast, the Hurlers are in action on Sunday in the big one against Clare in Ennis. It's always a big occasion when we travel to Cusack Park. We won there already this year. We'll have to go there again in May. So you'd rather go there with a winning record than a 50-50 record. I think that's for sure. Footballers are out again next week. The ladies footballers are in action against Carlow, but as we said, it's a dead rubber. Another Ardscoil Rís, obviously. So it's another eventful weekend to look forward to. The best luck to all the Limerick representatives. And you were mentioning the COVID waning there. There's definitely an opportunity for people to get out to these games. You can still social distance in most venues. It looks like it's going to be a dry one, so you can leave the umbrellas and the wet gear at home. But look, Matt, a huge thank you to you as usual, and we will be in touch next week early enough.
Thank you, Jack.
The impression again we get out of what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the war court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there